The diplomatic wing had become a waiting room for death. Ambassadors and staff from 17 species crowded into the reinforced section, watching the countdown timer on every screen. 4 hours and 30 minutes remained before the Krell could breach their final defenses. Outside, the battle continued, but everyone knew it was just a delay, not a victory. In one corner of the wing, a group of younger diplomats had gathered. They were the assistants and junior staff, many experiencing their first real posting away from their home worlds. A young Valthine named Iris sat with them, her crystalline body shifting through nervous colors. Blue for fear, purple for uncertainty. She was trying to keep everyone calm, but her own terror showed through. "We should share stories," Iris said suddenly. Her voice was high and musical, typical of her species. "My grandmother always said that stories keep the darkness away." A Dracon junior officer snorted, smoke puffing from his nostrils. His species believed in facing death with strength, not words, but he did not walk away. Perhaps even warriors needed distraction. Iris began speaking about the different species she had studied at the Galactic University. She talked about the Xanthari and their four-armed efficiency, the Centauri and their mathematical minds, the Draken and their warrior culture. Then she turned to humanity, and her colors shifted to curious green. "Humans are interesting," she said. "They have only been in space for 300 years. They only joined our council 30 years ago, but the stories about them are already strange." Peter Collins, who had been sitting quietly nearby, looked up. He was Victoria's assistant, young and earnest, with brown hair and tired eyes. "What kind of stories?" Iris's colors flickered with excitement, grateful for the distraction. "I studied at the university with a Draken military historian. He told me about the border wars 15 years ago. Human merchant vessels were being attacked by raiders near the Outer Rim. The Galactic Council debated what to do for weeks, but Earth did not wait for permission." She leaned forward, and the other young diplomats gathered closer. Even the cynical Draken seemed interested. "The humans sent 3 warships." "Just 3? The raiders had 20 vessels, all experienced fighters." The Dracon historian said his people watched the battle, expecting to see the humans die bravely. Instead, they saw something that shocked them. "What happened?" asked a small Centauri diplomat, her large black eyes wide. "The human ships fought like nothing the Dracon had ever seen. They used tactics that seemed insane. They took damage that should have destroyed them but kept fighting. They targeted the raiders with a precision that seemed impossible, and when the battle was over, all 20 raider ships were destroyed or captured. The human vessels were damaged, but all 3 survived." The Draken officer grunted. "I heard that story differently. My uncle said the humans were lucky. They caught the raiders by surprise." Iris's colors shifted to argumentative red. "Then explain the other stories." "The defense of Colony 7, where 2 human frigates held off an entire pirate fleet for 6 hours until help arrived. Or the rescue at Theta Station, where human marines fought through a hijacked station to save hostages from 4 different species, losing half their team but saving everyone they came for." Peter shifted uncomfortably. He knew these stories. Every human did. They were taught in schools back on Earth, examples of courage and sacrifice. But hearing them repeated by aliens made them sound different, more like legends than history. Another voice joined the conversation. "What about the Ghost Fleet?" Everyone turned to look at the speaker. She was a junior Valthine diplomat named Sophie Lee, one of only 2 other humans in the group besides Peter. Her family had moved to a Valthine colony when she was young, and she had grown up between 2 cultures. "Ghost Fleet?" Iris asked, her colors shifting to curious green again. Sophie nodded slowly. "When I was studying human history for my diplomatic exam, I found references to something called the 7th Deep Space Fleet. The records were strange. Lots of information was classified or redacted, but there were rumors. Rumors about what? The Draken was fully engaged now, his warrior instincts drawn to any story about military power. About a fleet that was created during Earth's unification wars, back before they reached space. Apparently the wars were terrible. Countries fought each other with weapons that could destroy whole cities. Millions died, and out of that darkness some of Earth's nations created special military units, ships designed not for conquest but for rapid response. They were supposed to appear anywhere violence broke out and stop it no matter the cost. Peter frowned. He had heard whispers about the 7th Fleet, but always in the context of old history. Something from Earth's dark past, before they learned to live in peace. That was centuries ago. Those ships would be ancient now if they even still exist. Sophie shrugged. The records suggested they were maintained, updated, kept in service even after Earth unified and moved into space. The rumor was that Earth keeps them as a reserve force for emergencies. The Draken laughed, a harsh barking sound. Why would Earth maintain an old fleet? It makes no strategic sense. Resources are limited. You build new ships with better technology, not preserve ancient vessels. Unless the purpose was not about technology, Iris said thoughtfully. Her colors had shifted to contemplative silver. What if the purpose was about something else? Experience, maybe. Or philosophy? A new voice cut through the conversation. Ambassador Victoria Hayes had approached the group without them noticing. She stood at the edge of their circle, her face unreadable. You should not believe everything you hear in stories, she said quietly, especially stories about war. Peter stood up quickly, embarrassed to be caught gossiping while their situation was so desperate. Ambassador, I apologize. We were just trying to keep our minds occupied. Victoria's expression softened slightly. I understand. Fear makes us search for hope anywhere we can find it. She looked at Iris. But you should know that humans are not the warriors your stories suggest. We are diplomats, scientists, artists. We prefer peace just like everyone here. Iris's color shifted to respectful blue. Of course, Ambassador. I meant no offense. But Sophie was watching Victoria carefully, and she saw something in the older woman's eyes. A knowledge that went deeper than her words suggested. The Seventh Fleet is real, is it not? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the station shook from another Krell weapon strike. The lights flickered. The countdown timer showed 4 hours and 5 minutes remaining. Finally, Victoria spoke. Every species has secrets. Things from their past they are not proud of. Earth is no different. Yes, there are fleets that most people never see. Ships that operate far from normal trade routes. But they are relics, Sophie. Symbols of an era we have tried to move beyond. But they still exist, the Drakon pressed. Why keep them if you are committed to peace? Victoria looked at each of the young faces around her. They were so hopeful, searching for any reason to believe they might survive. She did not want to give them false hope. But she also saw no reason to crush what little comfort they were finding in stories. Because peace is fragile, she said finally. Because the galaxy is large and dangerous. Because Earth learned hard lessons about what happens when good people are threatened and no one comes to help them. We promised ourselves that if we ever had the power, we would never let that happen to others. The Draken's eyes narrowed. So these ghost ships do exist. And they are out there somewhere patrolling the void. If they exist, Victoria said carefully, they are very far away. Too far to help us now. She looked at the countdown timer. The nearest human colony is 3 weeks away at maximum speed. Even if a fleet left the moment they received my distress call, they could not arrive in time. The hope that had been building in the group deflated like a punctured balloon. Of course, Earth could not help. They were too new, too small, too far away. The older species had vast empires and fleets that numbered in the thousands, but even they could not reach the station in time. What chance did humanity have? Iris's colors faded to sad gray. I am sorry. I should not have brought up false hope. Hope is never false, Victoria said. It is just sometimes not enough. She turned to leave, then paused. But for what it is worth, the stories you heard are not entirely wrong. Humans can be very determined when someone they care about is in danger. We just cannot break the laws of physics. Distance and time are enemies that even the bravest fleet cannot defeat. She walked away, leaving the young diplomats to their thoughts. Peter watched her go, noticing something in the way she held her shoulders. A tension that had not been there before, as if she was waiting for something. But waiting for what? The dragon broke the silence. Well, that settles it. No rescue is coming. We should prepare to meet death with honor. But Iris was not ready to give up on her stories. What if distance is not the problem we think it is? What if these ghost ships have technology we do not know about? That is fantasy, the Draken said dismissively. The laws of physics apply to everyone. Do they? Sophie asked quietly. She was staring at the space where Victoria had stood, her mind working through the pieces of the puzzle. Humans went from ground-based technology to faster-than-light travel in less than 200 years. That is incredibly fast by Galactic. Commander Kelvo studied the tactical display with his 4 arms crossed behind his back. The Xanthari officer had fought in 17 battles during his long career, and he knew the signs of a losing fight. His defensive fleet was down to 6 functional ships. Half his weapon platforms were destroyed. The outer sections of the station were open to space, venting atmosphere and bodies into the void. 3 hours and 40 minutes remained on his countdown. Then the Krell would breach the inner core and everyone inside would die. His sensor officer, a young Xanthari named Pelos, worked frantically at his station. The displays showed the Krell fleet maintaining their assault with mechanical precision. 27 warships, all undamaged, all fully armed. They were taking their time now, destroying the station piece by piece. The Krell commander was not just winning. He was making an example. Kelvos turned to his communication officer. Any response from the Allied fleets? The Valthine Armada confirms they are en route. Estimated arrival 68 hours. The Dracon battle group is 72 hours out. The Centauri Defense Force reports 89 hours. Too long. All of them too long. Kelvos had known it from the beginning, but he had hoped anyway. Hope was a foolish luxury in warfare, but he was old enough to indulge in foolishness. Another explosion rocked the command center. Alarms screamed across multiple panels. One of his remaining defensive platforms had just exploded, taking 3 Krell fighters with it. A small victory in a sea of defeat. Pelos suddenly sat up straight at his sensor station. His purple skin paled to almost white, and his hands moved rapidly across the controls. He ran the same scan 3 times, then 4, his movements becoming more frantic with each repetition. "Commander," Pelos said, his voice tight with confusion, "I am detecting anomalies at the system's edge." Kelvos walked to the sensor station. "What kind of anomalies?" "I do not know, sir. The readings make no sense." Pelos pointed at his display where multiple red indicators were appearing at the edge of their sensor range. Multiple massive signatures appearing from nowhere. No warp signatures. No jump gate activation. No debris field from destroyed vessels. They are just there. Kelvos leaned closer, studying the readings. His experience told him this was a sensor malfunction, damage from the battle creating ghost images. But something about the patterns bothered him. The signatures were too regular, too organized to be random errors. "How many signatures?" he asked. 12, sir. All capital ship size. Maybe larger. The energy readings are unlike anything in our database. Show me their trajectory." Pelos brought up the projected course. The signatures were moving directly toward the station at speeds that made Kelvos's breath catch. They were decelerating, but the rate of deceleration should have torn any known vessel apart. The gravitational forces alone would kill any crew inside. "This must be an error," Kelvos said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Run a full diagnostic on the sensor array." Pelos worked quickly. "Diagnostic complete, sir." All systems functioning normally. The signatures are real. Real, but impossible. No ship could travel that fast. No ship could decelerate at those rates. And no ship could appear at the system's edge without triggering any of their early warning systems. Kelvos opened a channel to the Krell flagship. If his sensors were detecting something strange, the Krell would see it too. Better to know what his enemy was thinking. The Krell admiral's face appeared on the screen. His species were reptilian, with green scales and yellow eyes that showed no mercy. He was smiling, displaying rows of sharp teeth. "Has the station commander decided to surrender?" the admiral asked mockingly. "I am contacting you about sensor readings at the system's edge. Are you detecting the same anomalies?" The Krell admiral glanced at something off-screen, then laughed. The sound was harsh and cold. "We see your ghost images, Xanthari. Your sensors are damaged. You see phantoms in the darkness because you are desperate. It changes nothing. Your time runs out." The channel closed. Kelvos stood in silence, thinking. The Krell admiral was probably right. Battle damage causing false readings. It was the logical explanation. But Kelvos had lived long enough to know that logic did not always match reality. "Keep tracking those signatures," he ordered Pelos. "I want to know the moment anything changes." 3 decks below, in the diplomatic wing, Victoria Hayes stood at a window staring into space. Peter approached her carefully, recognizing the tension in her shoulders. "Ambassador, are you all right?" Victoria did not turn around. "Peter, do you remember your basic training? When you joined the diplomatic corps?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you remember the section about emergency protocols? About what to do if you are trapped somewhere with no rescue possible?" Peter nodded, though she could not see it. "We are supposed to remain calm. Help others. Send final reports back to Earth. And do you remember the classified section?" The one they showed us but told us never to speak about? Peter felt something cold settle in his stomach. The classified section had been brief. Just 10 minutes of video and a single written instruction. At the time, he had thought it was paranoid, a relic of Earth's more violent past. Now, standing in a dying station, he understood why it existed. The emergency signal, he said quietly. The one that goes through the diplomatic encryption channel. Did you ever wonder why that signal exists? Why Earth maintains a communication system that can reach across the galaxy faster than normal channels? I assumed it was for important diplomatic messages. Victoria finally turned to face him. Her eyes were bright and tense. It exists so that Earth knows when its people are dying, so that no human dies alone and forgotten in the darkness. That signal is not for sending messages, Peter. It is for sending coordinates. Before Peter could respond, the station's alarm system changed tone. The steady wail became a rapid pulse indicating a new threat level. Victoria's communication panel beeped urgently. She pressed the button and heard Commander Kelvos's voice. All personnel, we are detecting unidentified vessels approaching the station. Classification unknown. Stand by for updates. Victoria's expression changed. The sadness and resignation vanished, replaced by something Peter had never seen in her face before. Certainty. Cold. Absolute certainty. They came, she whispered. Ambassador, what are you talking about? Who came? But Victoria was already moving, pulling out her datapad and accessing the station's sensor feeds. Peter looked over her shoulder and saw the same readings Kelvos was watching. 12 massive signatures moving impossibly fast on a direct course for their station. In the command center, Pelos was frantically updating his readings. Commander, the signatures are resolving. I am getting visual confirmation. Put it on screen, Kelvos ordered. The main display flickered, then showed a section of space near the system's edge. At first there was nothing. Then, like sharks emerging from dark water, shapes began to appear. Ships, 12 of them, massive and dark, their hulls reflecting starlight in strange ways. Kelvos had seen thousands of ship designs during his career. He knew the elegant curves of Valthene cruisers, the brutal angles of Dracon battleships, the geometric precision of Centauri destroyers. These vessels matched none of them. They were older. Their design spoke of a different era, when warfare was more brutal and mercy was a luxury. Their hulls were scarred with what looked like centuries of battle damage, and they moved with a purpose that made Kelvos's warrior heart recognize kindred spirits. Identification, he demanded. Pelos checked his readings, broadcasting human transponder codes, sir. Configuration matches Earth vessels, but the designs are not in any current database. I think they are old. Very old, human. Kelvos felt something that might have been hope stir in his chest, but he crushed it immediately. 12 ships against 27 Krell warships? And old human ships at that? Humanity's navy was competent but conventional. These ancient vessels could not possibly turn the battle. The lead human ship opened a communication channel on all frequencies. The voice that came through was calm, almost conversational, with a slight accent that suggested someone who had spent too much time in space. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth colonial ship Harbinger. We are responding to a distress signal from this station. All Krell vessels, you have 30 seconds to begin jump calculations away from this station. After that, we will consider you valid targets. The command center fell silent. Everyone stared at the display in disbelief. 30 seconds? One human was giving an ultimatum to the entire Krell fleet? The Krell admiral's response came quickly, his laughter echoing across all channels. Humans, I destroyed 3 of your patrol ships last year. They died bravely but uselessly. I will add your ancient relics to that count. 20 seconds, Commander Morrison replied, his tone unchanged. The Krell admiral cut off his laughter. You have 12 ships. I have 27. Your vessels are old and outdated. You cannot win this battle. 10 seconds, Morrison said. And you are wrong about one thing. This will not be a battle. The channel went silent. Kelvos watched his countdown timer. 10 seconds, 9, 8. The Krell fleet was not moving. They were holding position, weapons armed, confident in their superior numbers. 3, 2, 1. All Krell vessels are now valid targets, Morrison said quietly. Harbinger fleet weapons free. Execute Protocol 7. The alarm screamed through every corridor of the diplomatic station. Ambassador Victoria Hayes grabbed the edge of her desk as another explosion shook the walls. Red emergency lights flickered across her office, casting shadows that danced like flames. She had been reviewing trade agreements when the attack began. Now those papers lay scattered across the floor, forgotten. Outside her window, the void of space lit up with weapons fire. The Krell warships moved through the darkness like hungry predators. Their black hulls gleamed under the station lights, and their weapons glowed with deadly energy. Victoria counted at least 20 enemy vessels, maybe more. They surrounded the station in a perfect formation, cutting off any escape route. The station's defense fleet fought back with everything they had. Small fighters darted between the larger ships, their pilots brave but outmatched. The defensive platforms that ringed the station fired continuously, their energy beams striking Krell shields with flashes of blue light. But for every shot the defenders landed, the Krell returned 10 more. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Victoria's communication panel beeped urgently. She pressed the button and heard the strained voice of Commander Kelvos, the station's military leader. The Xanthari officer's normally calm tone was tight with stress. All diplomatic personnel must evacuate to the inner core immediately. We are losing the outer sections. Repeat, evacuate now. She looked around her office one last time. 20 years of service to Earth's diplomatic corps, and it would end here in a station far from home. She grabbed her emergency data pad and ran for the door. The corridors were chaos. Aliens from 17 different species rushed past her, their faces showing the universal expression of fear. A group of Valthian scholars hurried by, their crystalline skin pulsing with worried colors. 2 Draken warriors carried an injured station worker between them, their scaled faces grim with determination. Everyone was heading toward the center of the station, where the walls were thickest and the shields strongest. Victoria joined the flow of people moving through the main corridor. Another explosion rocked the station, stronger this time. The lights went out completely for 3 seconds before the backup systems kicked in. In that brief darkness, she heard someone crying. She could not tell which species they belonged to. Terror sounded the same in every language. The diplomatic wing was ahead. She could see other ambassadors gathering near the entrance to the reinforced section. The Galactic Council had built this station as a place of peace, where different species could meet and resolve conflicts through words instead of weapons. The walls were decorated with artwork from 100 worlds. The gardens held plants from systems light years apart. It was supposed to be neutral ground, protected by treaty and mutual respect. The Krell Dominion did not care about treaties. Victoria reached the diplomatic wing and found the other human staff already assembled. There were only 12 of them on the station, a small delegation compared to some of the older species. Her assistant, a young man named Peter Collins, handed her a status report on his data pad. "We have lost 40% of our defensive capability," he said quietly. "The Krell are targeting our shield generators. Commander Kelvos estimates we have 6 hours before they can breach the inner core." 6 hours. Victoria felt the weight of that number settle in her chest. She looked at the faces around her. Some were scared. Some were angry. All of them were far from home, waiting to see if anyone would arrive in time to save them. Commander Kelvos appeared at the entrance to the command center. The tall Xanthari had purple skin and 4 arms, which he used to gesture at different displays simultaneously. His uniform was torn and blood stained his shoulder, but he stood straight and spoke clearly. "The Council's allied fleets have responded to our distress calls. The Valthian Armada is 3 days away. The Drakon battle group can arrive in 4 days. The Centauri Defense Force is 5 days out." He paused, and his large eyes showed the truth they all understood. "We do not have 3 days. A Valthian ambassador stepped forward. "What about negotiation? Can we offer the Krell something to stop this attack?" Kelvos shook his head. "They have made their demands clear. Complete surrender or complete destruction. The Krell do not negotiate. They conquer or they kill." Victoria felt dozens of eyes turn toward her. As the human ambassador, she represented one of the newest species in the Galactic Council. Earth had only joined 30 years ago, and most of the older species still saw humans as children playing in an adult galaxy. She knew what they were thinking. Humanity's fleets were even farther away than the others. Earth could not help. She pulled out her personal communicator and connected to the encrypted diplomatic channel that linked directly to Earth. The signal would take hours to arrive, bouncing through relay stations across the spiral arm of the galaxy. By the time anyone on Earth received it, she would likely be dead. Victoria began recording her message. She kept her voice steady and professional. She reported the attack, listed the casualties, and provided tactical data about the Krell fleet. She sent files containing information that might help Earth's military understand their enemy better. Then at the end, she added personal messages for her family. Simple words. I love you. I am sorry. Be proud. She finished the recording and sent it into the void. The communicator confirmed transmission and she put it away. Peter was watching her with worried eyes. Should we not ask for help? He asked. Earth is too far away, Victoria replied. She tried to smile, but it felt wrong on her face. Even if they launched a rescue fleet the moment they received the message, they could not arrive in time. I sent a report, not a request. They need to know what happened here. Around them, other ambassadors were doing the same thing, sending final messages home, saying goodbye to families they would never see again. The station shook again, and somewhere far above them, another section depressurized. More people were dying while they stood here, safe for a few more hours. Victoria walked to the window and looked out at the battle. The Krell ships moved with mechanical precision, their formations perfect and deadly. They were winning, and they knew it. She could see their flagship, a massive vessel 3 times the size of any defender ship. Its weapons fired constantly, each shot tearing through shields and armor like paper. She wondered if the Krell commander was watching from that ship. Was he counting down the hours until victory? Did he feel anything about the lives he was ending? Or was this just another conquest, another station added to his empire's collection? The other diplomats gathered in small groups, members of their own species huddling together for comfort. Victoria noticed that the younger aliens kept glancing at the older ones, looking for reassurance that no one could give. Death was coming, and everyone knew it. Commander Kelvos returned to the command center, shouting orders to his remaining crew. He was trying to organize a final defense, buying every minute he could for the people under his protection. Victoria respected that. When faced with certain death, he chose to fight rather than surrender. She made a decision. If these were her last hours, she would spend them helping where she could. She turned to Peter and the other human staff. Find anyone who is injured and help them reach the medical center. Find anyone who is alone and scared and sit with them. We may not be able to save ourselves, but we can make sure no one dies alone. They nodded and spread out through the diplomatic wing. Victoria joined them, moving through the crowded spaces, offering water to those who needed it, translating for those whose universal translators had failed, holding the hands of those who were too frightened to speak. The countdown continued. 5 hours and 40 minutes until the end, and somewhere far away her message traveled through the darkness toward Earth, carrying news of a battle already lost. The next 72 hours transformed the station from a battlefield into a strange kind of refugee camp, where rescuers and rescued worked side by side. Human repair crews moved through damaged sections with equipment that looked ancient, but functioned perfectly. They welded broken hull plates, restored power to darkened corridors, and cleared debris with quiet efficiency. Commander Morrison had set up a temporary command post in one of the station's conference rooms. Maps and status reports covered every wall, tracking repair progress and monitoring space around the station for any additional threats. He worked with minimal sleep, coordinating between his 12 ships and the station's crews. Victoria Hayes found him there on the second day, reviewing damage reports with Commander Kelvos. Both officers looked exhausted, but the station was slowly coming back to life around them. "Ambassador," Morrison said, looking up from his datapad, "what can I do for you?" "I wanted to ask about your crew. Are they receiving proper rest? The station can provide quarters if your ships are overcrowded." Morrison smiled slightly. "Thank you, but my crew prefers to stay aboard. We are used to our ships. They are home to us." Kelvos made a gesture with 2 of his arms that indicated curiosity. "Commander, if I may ask a personal question?" "How long have you been serving with the 7th Fleet?" 18 years, Morrison replied. "I joined when I was 22 years old, fresh from the academy. I thought I would serve a standard 5-year tour, then transferred to a regular fleet posting." He paused, something wistful crossing his face. "But the 7th Fleet has a way of keeping people. Once you understand the mission, it becomes difficult to leave." "Because of the purpose?" Victoria asked. "Because of the people we save. Every station we reach in time, every ship we protect, every life we preserve. They add up. They become a weight you carry, but also a weight that keeps you grounded, makes the sacrifice worth it." Kelvos studied the human commander with his large, expressive eyes. You speak of sacrifice. What have you sacrificed, Commander Morrison? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. I had a wife once. Met her at the academy. We were married for 2 years before I joined the 7th Fleet. She tried to understand, tried to accept the long patrols and the missed anniversaries. But 14 months away is hard on a marriage. We divorced after my 3rd tour. She has remarried now, has children. I get messages from her sometimes, just friendly updates. She seems happy. You regret your choice? Victoria asked gently. No, but I regret that the choice was necessary, that the galaxy is dangerous enough to need fleets like mine. He looked at both of them. Every person in my fleet has a similar story. Relationships that ended because we were never home. Families we cannot visit for years at a time. Careers we might have had in civilian life. We give those things up because someone has to. A young crew member appeared at the door, a woman with lieutenant's insignia and tired eyes. Commander, engineering reports that the Harbinger's reactor is running at 87% efficiency. Chief engineer says it is good enough for patrol operations. Morrison nodded. Thank you, Lieutenant Karen Phillips. Tell the chief to focus on the other ships. The Harbinger can wait. The lieutenant saluted and left. Kelvos watched her go, noting the way she moved, the professional efficiency that matched her commander. Your crew is very disciplined, Kelvos observed. They have to be. We operate alone most of the time. Far from support. Every person needs to be excellent at their job, because there is no one else to ask for help. Morrison turned back to his reports. But they are also the best people I've ever served with. They volunteered for this duty knowing what it would cost. That kind of commitment creates bonds that go beyond normal military service. Over the next day, the station's inhabitants began interacting more with the human crews. The younger diplomats especially were fascinated by these warriors who had saved them. Iris spent hours following repair teams around, asking questions in her musical voice. She found herself working alongside a human engineer named Danny Chen, who was repairing a power conduit in one of the damaged corridors. He was young, perhaps 25, with strong hands and an easy smile. Why did you join the 7th Fleet? Iris asked, her colors shifting to curious green. Danny did not look up from his work. My home colony was attacked by raiders when I was 15. We sent distress signals, but no one came. The colony defense force fought bravely, but we were outnumbered. I watched friends die, watched buildings burn. Then 3 days into the attack, the 7th Fleet arrived. His hands kept moving, making adjustments to the conduit with practiced ease. I had never seen anything like it. 12 ships, just like now, appearing out of nowhere and driving off the raiders in minutes. After it was over, Commander Morrison came down to the surface and walked through the ruins. He did not give speeches or make promises. He just helped us bury our dead and start rebuilding. Danny finally looked at Iris, and she saw pain in his eyes that had become familiar purpose. I joined because I wanted to be the person who shows up. I wanted to be the help that arrives when everyone else has given up hope. The 7th Fleet gave me that chance. Similar conversations were happening throughout the station. A Dracon warrior spoke with a human tactical officer about combat philosophy. A Valthene scholar discussed navigation with a human pilot who had been jumping through dangerous regions of space for 10 years. A Centauri medical officer worked alongside a human doctor who could perform surgery on 17 different species. Each conversation revealed the same pattern. The humans of the 7th Fleet were volunteers. They had all experienced situations where help did not arrive in time, where distance and physics meant watching people die. They had all chosen to become the solution to that problem, whatever the personal cost. On the 3rd day, Commander Morrison called a meeting with all the diplomatic representatives. They gathered in the main conference room, which human repair crews had just finished restoring. Morrison stood at the head of the table, looking more tired than ever but standing straight. Representatives of the Galactic Council, he began formally. My fleet will be departing in 6 hours. Your station is secure, and the Valthene Armada will arrive tomorrow to provide additional protection. Before we leave, there are things I need to say. He paused, choosing his words carefully. What happened here will be reported to your governments. They will hear about the 7th Fleet and what we can do. Some will be grateful, some will be curious, and some will be frightened. Frightened? Asked a Centauri ambassador. Why would anyone fear those who saved us? Morrison's expression was sad. Because power is frightening, regardless of how it is used. My fleet demonstrated capabilities that exceed normal military forces. We arrived faster than should be possible. We fought with efficiency that seems inhuman. We destroyed a superior force without taking significant damage. To some governments, that will look like a threat. Kelvos stood up, his forearms gesturing emphatically. Commander, no one here sees you as a threat. You saved thousands of lives. You asked nothing in return. How could anyone interpret that as threatening? Because they will ask the same questions you are all asking, Morrison replied. How many fleets like mine does Earth maintain? What other capabilities do we have hidden? What are our real intentions? And those are fair questions. Earth is a young species in galactic terms. We joined your council only 30 years ago. Now we reveal that we have maintained military forces that operate outside normal parameters. That creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates fear. Victoria Hayes spoke up from her position at the table. Commander Morrison is correct. When I send my report to Earth, I will recommend full transparency about the 7th Fleet. The galactic community deserves to know what Earth has been doing. Secrets create suspicion, Morrison nodded. Ambassador Hayes and I have discussed this. Earth is prepared to answer questions about our rapid response fleets. We will not reveal all our tactical capabilities, but we will explain our purpose and our philosophy. We will offer to coordinate with the Council's peacekeeping forces. We want to be partners, not mysterious threats. Iris's colors shifted to concerned orange. But what if some governments react badly? What if they see Earth as a danger that needs to be controlled? Then they will try to control us, Morrison said simply. And they will fail. Because the 7th Fleet and other units like it do not exist to serve governments or councils. We exist to answer distress calls and protect civilians. We will continue doing that regardless of political pressure. A Dracon representative, older and scarred from many battles, spoke with the growling voice of his species. Commander Morrison, you speak of independence from political control. But all military forces serve some authority. Who commands the 7th Fleet? Earth's Deep Space Command, which reports to Earth's unified government. But our mission parameters give us significant autonomy in how we respond to emergencies. We are not a tool for conquest or political leverage. We are a promise that Earth made to itself and now extends to others. That promise is not negotiable. The meeting continued for another hour. Morrison answered questions about patrol routes and response times. He explained that Earth maintained 6 rapid response fleets in different regions of space, all. The battle was over in 14 minutes. 14 minutes from the moment Commander Morrison gave the order, until the last Krell vessel stopped transmitting. Every screen in the station's command center showed the results. 27 Krell warships, 16 destroyed completely, 11 disabled, their reactors offline, their crews either dead or unconscious from rapid decompression. The 12 human ships hung in space around the station like silent guardians. Their dark hulls bore scorch marks from Krell weapons, but nothing that looked critical. They had executed what should have been an impossible victory with the efficiency of a routine training exercise. Commander Kelvos stood at his command station, 4 arms hanging uselessly at his sides. He had witnessed something that his military training told him could not happen. Superior numbers should win. Superior firepower should dominate. The Krell had possessed both advantages, yet they had lost so completely that calling it a battle felt wrong. It had been an execution. Pelos, Kelvos said, his voice hoarse. Sensor analysis. How did they do it? The young sensor officer was trembling as he worked his controls. Commander, I do not understand the readings. The human ships moved faster than they should have been able to. Their weapons fired with targeting accuracy that exceeds our best computers. Their coordination was perfect. Not just good. Perfect. As if all 12 ships were controlled by a single mind. Kelvos pulled up the battle recording and played it at slow speed. He watched the human ships move through the Krell formation like water flowing around rocks. Every movement had purpose. Every shot had meaning. There was no wasted effort, no hesitation, no confusion. Just pure, terrifying competence. A communication request came through from the lead human vessel. Kelvos accepted it immediately. Commander Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He was younger than Kelvos had expected, perhaps 40 years old by human standards. His hair was dark with gray at the temples, and his eyes were the color of Earth's oceans. But those eyes had seen things. Too many things. They held a weariness that went deeper than physical exhaustion. Commander Kelvos, Morrison said with a slight nod. We are establishing a defensive perimeter around the station. Request permission to dock and render assistance to damaged sections. Kelvos realized he was staring and forced himself to speak. Permission granted. Commander Morrison, I must ask, how did you arrive so quickly? Our distress signal was sent less than 6 hours ago. The nearest human colony is 3 weeks away. Morrison's expression did not change. We were already en route when the distress signal reached us. My fleet operates on deep space patrol. We monitor diplomatic channels. It was an answer that explained nothing, but Kelvos recognized the tone. Some information was classified. Some questions would not be answered. He had been a soldier long enough to understand. The station owes you a debt we cannot repay, Kelvos said formally. You saved thousands of lives today. We did our job, Morrison replied. Nothing more. We will send repair teams to help with your damaged sections. My medical officer will coordinate with your staff to treat the wounded. He paused, and something flickered in those tired eyes. And, Commander, if you have dead that need proper ceremonies, my crew is trained in burial rites for 47 different species. We will help you honor them. The channel closed before Kelvos could respond. He stood in silence, processing that last statement. A military fleet that trained its crew in alien funeral rites. What kind of ships were these? In the diplomatic wing, chaos had transformed into confused celebration. The young diplomats who had been preparing for death were now trying to understand their sudden survival. Iris's crystalline body pulsed with colors that shifted so rapidly they blurred together. Joy, confusion, disbelief, gratitude. Victoria Hayes stood apart from the celebration, watching the human ships on her data pad. Peter approached her carefully. Ambassador, were you expecting them? Victoria looked up at him. Expecting? No, hoping. Yes, there is a difference. But you knew. When you saw the sensor readings, you knew who they were. She nodded slowly. I recognized the signature. Old Earth drives, modified and improved over centuries, but still carrying the same energy pattern. The 7th Deep Space Fleet does not use modern human technology. They use something older, something that went into reserve when Earth joined the galactic community. Why keep old technology? Because sometimes old is better. Modern human ships are fast, but they follow galactic standards for safety and efficiency. Those standards include limits on acceleration, on power output, on weapons. The 7th Fleet does not follow galactic standards. They follow Earth's old military doctrine, the one we used when we were fighting ourselves and had no one else to help us. Peter stared at the ships on the display. What are they? Ghosts, Victoria said quietly. Ghosts from humanity's worst era, kept alive to make sure no one ever experiences that era again. The first shuttle from the Harbinger docked an hour later. Commander Morrison emerged with 20 crew members, all wearing dark gray uniforms that looked worn but perfectly maintained. They moved with the same precise efficiency their ships had shown in combat. The station's diplomatic representatives had gathered at the docking bay to greet them. Representatives from 17 species, all wanting to thank their rescuers, all curious about these mysterious humans who had appeared from nowhere. Morrison walked through the crowd with polite nods but did not stop to speak with anyone. His eyes were scanning the gathered aliens, searching for something specific. When his gaze found Victoria Hayes, he changed direction and approached her directly. Ambassador Hayes, he said, his voice the same calm tone from the communication channel. I am glad we arrived in time. Victoria felt tears threatening and fought them back. Commander Morrison, I sent that message expecting no one would receive it in time. How did you know? Your emergency signal reached Earth 4 hours after you sent it. We were already in deep space on patrol, closer than our home system. Earth Command forwarded your coordinates and told us to move at emergency speed. He paused and his expression softened slightly. My crew spent 3 hours in acceleration couches pulling forces that should have killed them. We burned through our emergency fuel reserves. Half my ships will need complete engine overhauls after this, but we made it. That is what matters. The other diplomats were pressing closer, all trying to hear the conversation. Iris pushed forward, her colors bright with curiosity. Commander Morrison, if I may ask, what is the 7th Deep Space Fleet? I have studied military history and I have never encountered reference to it. Morrison looked at the young Valthine, and something that might have been a smile touched his face. We are a remnant, young scholar, a piece of history that Earth chose not to forget. But why maintain such old ships? Why not upgrade to modern technology? Because modern technology comes with modern limitations, Morrison replied. Galactic standards exist for good reasons. They prevent accidents. They ensure safety. They promote cooperation. But they also mean that everyone's ships perform within certain parameters. Speed has limits. Weapons have restrictions. Tactics follow established patterns. He gestured toward the window where his ships hung in space. The Seventh Fleet does not follow those patterns. We were designed during Earth's unification wars, when our species was fighting itself with weapons that could end our world. We learned to fight in ways the galaxy has never seen, because we were fighting enemies who knew all our tricks. We developed drives that could cross systems in days instead of weeks, weapons that could penetrate any defense, tactics based on the assumption that you were always outnumbered and outgunned. A Draken military attaché stepped forward, his scales bristling with professional interest. Your tactics were impressive, Commander. But they were also brutal. You showed no mercy to the Krell fleet. Morrison's expression went cold. The Krell were attacking a diplomatic station. They were targeting civilians. They had declared their intention to kill everyone here. Mercy was not appropriate in that situation. But you destroyed ships that were trying to retreat. They had their chance to retreat. I gave them 30 seconds. They chose to fight instead. Once that choice was made, I did not give them another opportunity. Half measures in combat get good people killed. The Draken nodded slowly, understanding the logic even if he found it harsh. Your fleet has seen much combat, I think. Yes, Morrison said simply. He did not elaborate. Commander Kelvos arrived at the docking bay, still trying to process everything that had happened. He approached Morrison and offered a formal Zenthari salute. All four arms crossed over his chest. Commander Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council and this station, I offer our deepest gratitude. You have done what we thought impossible. Morrison returned the salute in the human style, hand to forehead. We did what we were trained to do, Commander Kelvos. Nothing more. I must ask for my official report. How many ships does Earth maintain like yours? How many of these deep space fleets exist? Morrison was quiet for a moment, considering how much to reveal. That information is classified. But I can tell you that the Seventh Fleet is not the only one. Earth maintains several rapid response units in different regions of space. We patrol, we watch. We respond when needed. Iris's color shifted to fascinated green.